Hello everyone, JL Wasabi here. Today I will be running through the remaining 5 cost units of set 14. But before we begin, I would just like to say that it would really help small content creators like myself a lot if you can help to like the video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Thank you so much and let's get right into it. As mentioned in part 1, each TFT set is usually defined by their 5 cost units, and even more so for the remaining units today, as 3 out of 4 of them have their own unique traits. The units that we will be going through today are mainly tank or bruiser units. Kobuko, Renekton, Zac, and Garen. It is not in alphabetical order as I have a lot more to talk about for the last 3 units since they have unique traits and much more nuances to them. I will briefly run through their skills first. Kobuko's passive makes his attacks deal bonus magic damage and his AoE when he is the cyber boss. At 50% health, phase 2 is triggered where he gains a thick shield and knocks everyone up within 2 hex range and slams them down for huge AoE damage. Thereafter, he gains attack speed, omnivamp, and extra bonus magic damage to his passive. Renekton damages enemies within 2 hexes and burns and wounds them. He also gains max health upon each cast. On first cast, his attack strikes twice and can dash to new targets. On second cast, his attack strikes thrice now but cannot further cast his skills again. Zac's passive allows him to split when he reaches 10% health into 3 copies each with 50% health. Him and the copies can cast their skills to bounce 3 times on nearby enemies to damage and stun them while healing themselves. Lastly, Garen's skill gives him a 1.5 second shield while dealing damage to the current target and a wave of damage to nearby enemies behind. He can gain mana if the wave hits 2 or fewer enemies. First up, we have Kobuko. Kobuko is the late game unit when playing Bruiser or Cyberboss. For Cyberboss is locked behind finding Kobuko as there is no Cyberboss emblem available. You can refer to my guide if you would like to know how to play the Cyberboss comp. He has a crazy 2 hex AoE knockup that will usually hit the entire enemy front line and also deals huge damage at the same time. There is a downside and upside to this skill. Downside being that it can only be cast once per fight, since his skill is not dependent on mana. The upside is that he will always get off this huge AoE knockup at 50% health, unlike units such as Sejuani that can be killed before they can cast their stuns. A huge shield is also activated at 50% health that helps him to tank effectively while he transitions to a bruiser fighter. Given that his traits, skill, and passive provides him with essentially everything, health, damage, shield, attack speed, omnivamp, and crowd control, his items are very flexible and can fit almost anything other than AD-focused items like Death Blade. You can build him as a tank, AP carry, or bruiser. However, the main item that you should give him if you can is Bloodthirster. This helps him to Omega tank the enemy frontline since his phase 2 activates a huge shield at 50% health. Bloodthirster, on the other hand, will further activate at 40% health for yet another shield after the first shield proc. Shielding artifacts and emblems like Light Crest Shield and Vanguard Emblem is also great on him. In general, Kobuko is a very flexible unit to fit into most comps since he's one of the best tanks available and can easily activate 2 Bruiser or 2 Cyberboss as a splash trait. When playing Bruisers, we usually rely on Cho'Gath as the main tank due to infinitely scaling health. However, Kobuko can be the main tank in Cho'Gath's absence or when splashing in late game as mentioned earlier. Always itemize your Kobuko regardless since he is a very strong unit. When playing with 4 Cyberboss, Kobuko is the main tank once upgraded, even if you have a 3-star Poppy. as he provides a lot of value from his traits and skill. Also, Kobuko is the most important unit to find whether you are playing Vega Revo or Tempo 4 Cyberboss, as the spike from 3 to 4 Cyberboss is huge since all of them will gain from the buff. Thus, finding Kobuko is crucial and is a make or break for your top 4 placement. Renekton is a late game unit for Bastion and Divinicorp, and 6 or 7 Divinicorp is usually locked behind finding Renekton unless you have enough emblems. Even so, Divinicorp's very important attack speed buff is only provided by him. Renekton is a self-sufficient unit since his skill provides him with innate burn wound for healing reduction on his target, and also makes him tankier to absorb more damage when fighting. The most important part of his skill is reaching his first and second cast, where his attacks will strike 2 and then 3 times each. This helps to stack up Greensu extremely fast, which is why Greensu Rage Blade is his most important item to equip. Even though it takes 150 mana to cast his skill, it gets easier as he attacks faster and will usually win fights once he gets to his second cast. Quicksilver is also an item you can consider to ramp up his attack speed and prevents him from getting stunned, since getting stunned will delay him from reaching his second cast fast enough. Renekton has a unique trait called Overlord. Overlord makes him the boss of whoever is standing behind Renekton. So he bites and deals 40% max health true damage to them in return for a buff of 40% of the unit's health and 25% of the unit's AD. This further makes Renekton a hyper carry unit with higher damage and survivability. If you require a tankier frontline, you can bite a non-main tank frontliner for the health gain. Do not bite a main tank since this does max health true damage and they can die very easily early on. If you play Renekton as an attacker, which is usually the case, we typically bite Senna as she has the highest base AD in the game and can heal back her missing health via the Slayer trait if it is active. Furthermore, Senna is also a Divinicorp unit as well. You can essentially bite any units, even golems and dummies. However, due to the overpowered interaction with Golemify and Dummify, the interaction with these units is only at 33% effectiveness, which means Renekton will only gain 13% of its health and 8% of its AD. When playing Bastion, Renekton is not a main tank but usually a late game splash. When playing 4 or 6 Bastions, the main tank is usually like a 3-star Galio, especially when coming from a Cypher transition. However, you can still itemize him as a damage dealer if you have extra Greensu to spare. When playing Divinicorp, Renekton is also a attack speed buff trait bot since you would have itemized other units like Vex or Zed by then. However, if you manage to get an upgraded Renekton, you can itemize him to deal damage as well. Next up, we have Zac. Zac is the late game cap for tanks in general and is the best tank in TFT set 14 in my opinion. In the case that you find early Zac, when you are level 8 or even level 7 if you are lucky, you must play him onto your board. This is because Zac has infinitely scaling AP and HP due to the boblets from his unique trait that I will be explaining later on. This incentivizes you to play him early on since he will scale more into the late game. Zac has good utility in terms of his stuns, especially when each of his clones can cast the skill independently to stun enemies. Thus, Protector's Vow is an important item to help the clones cast early before they die. I will also be elaborating more on some of the crazy item interactions that Zac has due to his splitting passive. One thing to note, the extra boblets and HP gain does not work when he is swapped in by Aurora, since the trait will not be active. But he is still a good tank in general if you have no other better options. Zac has a unique trait called Virus, and I will say that his unique trait is the signature trait for TFT set 14, since a computer virus relates very well to a cyber-focused set. When Zac is on your board, do note that he has to be on your board. Shops have a 10% chance to have virus bobblers appearing like in the picture shown below. You can buy them from the shop for free by just clicking on them, and it will reveal the normal units underneath if you need to buy them. This can cause some delay, especially if you are trying to do an urgent roll down or pivot, since you may have to click the virus bobblers in the shop. Based on my experience, there is a higher chance of me skipping the unit that I want to buy in the shop as well if it is hidden behind the virus bobblet. So you will definitely need to get used to it. Each boblet increases Zac's health by 3% and AP by 4%. And you can continue to roll and buy them even when the fight is ongoing, since it does not snapshot at the start of combat. The goal is to stack beyond 30 boblets for roughly double the base health and AP, giving a 2-star Zac around 3000 base health. Moving on to the item interactions with Zac, I need to explain why there are so many broken or good interactions with items. This is because when Zac splits due to his passive, each of his clone retains the items equipped just like Suspicious Trenchcoat. Furthermore, this split procs as a unit death. First, Protector's Vow and other aura items like Sunfire Cape and Redemption are very good items on Zac, since each clone will provide their own item aura, with Protector's Vow being extra crucial for the clones to cast their stuns again. Tank items, artifacts like Anima Visage is also a good one, given that Zac theoretically has infinitely scaling health. Next, artifacts that can make Zacs more of them, such as Suspicious Trenchcoat and Trickster's Glass, or augments like Cloning Facility provides you with more tanks and more crowd control that is very difficult for the enemy to overcome. Horizon Focus deals 30% max health damage to enemies when they are stunned by the holder, and synergizes very well with the multiple stuns from Zac and clones. Unstable Treasure Chest, giving 4 items on unit death, can proc upon the main Zac splitting and the clones dying, and can give up to 16 items if you have enough empty item slots on your board. Spite also provides AoE stuns on the main Zac splitting and clones dying as well. As Zac has no other traits other than Virus, you can essentially fit him into any comps as a splash. As mentioned, you should always look to play Zac if you get him early on and can start stacking early on. Also, if you have augments for free rerolls such as Prismatic Ticket, you should aim to play him as well, since the free short refreshes can proc virus boblets and can help you get to 30 boblets easily and even much higher than that. You can look to splash in Zac for comps that are more backline heavy, such as Amp and Dynamo, to help beef up the front line. Last, we have Garen. Garen is the late game cap for most teams in general, as he has the best utility in TFT Set 14 in my opinion. In the case that you find an early Garen when you are level 8 or even level 7 if you are lucky, you must play him onto your board. This is because Garen can modify all your important tanks and carry units, but it takes time for him to do so, which I will be explaining later on. These mods can be more valuable than emblems since they do not take up item slots. This is especially important so for origin emblems since they only provide the traits, whereas class emblems give additional effects while the mods don't. These mods are not available for traits without emblems such as Amp and Nitro. And for traits like Syndicate, it only provides the stat bonuses but not the ability upgrades. Garen's skill also provides a crazy thick shield even though it only lasts for 1.5 seconds. Garen's unique trait is called God of the Net. This is as relevant to this set as Zac's Virus, given that he has the ability to hack all the units to modify them accordingly. After 2 combats with Garen on the board, a trait mod armory will be opened as shown in the picture for you to choose a trait mod. I believe that these mods are based on the active and inactive traits on your board. More combat rounds will be needed to open subsequent armory, 3, 4, 5 rounds, so on and so forth. Do note that these trait mods do not contribute to the trait breakpoints and the modded units will only benefit from the traits if the traits are active. For example, if your Sejuani on the one bruiser board has a bruiser mod, there is no benefit for her since bruiser is not active and the mod cannot add on to the trait. But if your Sejuani is on a two bruiser board and has a bruiser mod, Sejuani benefits from the two bruiser health gain to all units as well as the bonus health to bruiser units. However, please remember that the mods are only active when Garen is on your board, and every unit can only be modded once unless you sell off the modded unit, which is not advisable to do so since you don't get the mod back. The reason why Garen is the late game cap for most teams is that the trait mods can help to unlock many units' damage potential even without having to find emblems. As mentioned previously, there is also no need to drop items for the mods. Thus, these modded carries or tanks can still have 3 items, making them extremely strong. Here are some of the broken interactions with the trait mods that I personally keep a lookout for. I will just point some of them out for elaboration. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments section and I will respond to you very soon. First would be the Boombot mod for Greensu users such as Twisted Fate when playing with 4 Boombots or more, as they can keep pumping out more and more damage. Divinicor mod for Zed allows him to benefit from all the Divinicor buffs without having to drop any of his best in-slot items. Rapid Fire is also good on Renekton to substitute as Greensu for him. Vanguard mod is also super good on Mordekaiser since his shield scales with his techie trait, or any units that does well with shielding such as Kobuko as mentioned earlier. In particular, I want to point out that Bruiser mod is not a good replacement on Fiddlesticks since he relies on the additional magic damage from the usual Bruiser emblem to deal much higher damage. As Garen also has no other traits other than God of the Net, you can essentially fit him into any comps as a splash for the trait mods. When playing vertical traits like Street Demon strategies, you can look to mod the units with the higher traits to let them benefit from the stat bonuses. Rengar reroll in particular looks for the strategist mod that can double his damage reduction for huge survivability. You can aim to play Garen when you are playing comps with duo or trio carries like the Vanguard Marksman comp. This is because while they can have the same damage class, their origin usually differs. Thus, you can aim to cross-mod them, such as in the Marksman comp where you can make Xayah a Golden Ox unit for the damage amp, or Aphelios and Anima squad for the resistance and damage amp. Thank you for enduring this long-ass video together with me. You are absolutely awesome if you have reached the end of this guide, and I hope you have learned something from this video. If you find this video useful, I greatly appreciate if you can like the video and subscribe to my channel for more guides and gameplay videos. See you again, bye bye!